Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the sterile confines of the examination room, Nikolai faced his own mortality, a jarring realization triggered by a routine checkup. He sat on crinkling paper, his heart racing, not from the elevated blood pressure the doctor mentioned, but from the sudden clarity of his own existence. In that moment, he vowed to shed every half-spoken truth that burdened him. The following week, in the familiar setting of their kitchen, Nikolai's mother became the first patron of his long-overdue confession. He spoke of secrets, beginning with a whisper,
"I've been embracing a hidden part of myself, wearing women's clothing." As he shared, he felt like a teenager again, vulnerable and raw under her steady gaze. "Just for me, when I'm alone." The silence stretched between them. Outside, late autumn rain tapped against the windows of the small suburban home where he'd grown up, where he'd returned after his divorce 3 months ago. "Show me," she finally said. Nikolai led her upstairs to the guest bedroom that had once been his childhood room. From the back of the closet, behind winter coats and boxes of old textbooks, he pulled out a garment bag. His hands trembled as he unzipped it, revealing a navy cocktail dress with a modest neckline and knee-length hem. His mother touched the fabric with reverent fingers. "It's beautiful."
Tears welled in her eyes, but not the tears of disappointment or disgust he'd feared. Something else entirely lived in those tears. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding. "Wait here," she said. She returned moments later with a wooden jewelry box inlaid with mother-of-pearl. Opening it, she removed a strand of pearls. Not expensive ones, but luminous nonetheless, like tiny moons strung together. "These were my mother's," she said. "I think they would look lovely with that dress." That evening, they sat together on her bed, surrounded by fashion magazines from decades past. She showed him how to properly apply lipstick, laughing at his first clumsy attempts. They discussed hemlines and necklines and which colors might complement his complexion. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "you might want to choose a name. Something that feels like you." He hadn't considered this before. A name for this other self that wasn't really other at all, but the self he'd hidden away. "What about Audrey?" his mother suggested. "I always loved that name. It was going to be yours if you had been born a girl."
"Audrey,"
he repeated, tasting the syllables. Something clicked into place, a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed.
"Audrey."
In the weeks that followed, Nikolai became Audrey whenever she was home with her mother. The mauve vintage dresses from her mother's closet became favorites, along with a pair of beige pumps that, miraculously, fit her feet. Her mother helped her practice walking in them, both of them dissolving into laughter when she stumbled. But beyond these walls lay the rest of their small town, where Nikolai had grown up, and where people had known him his entire life. The world outside remained a boundary uncrossed. Until the invitation arrived. A cream-colored envelope addressed to her mother. A retirement party for her former colleague, Eleanor Winston, +1. "Come with me," her mother said over breakfast. "As Audrey." The fork froze halfway to her mouth. "I can't." "Why not? Eleanor lives in Rochester now. No one there knows you." "But they know you. What will they think?" Her mother reached across the table and covered her hand. "They'll think I have a lovely daughter who accompanied me to a party. Nothing more." Panic and longing warred within her. "I don't look like a woman. Not really." "Nonsense. With the right makeup and your blonde hair styled properly, you'll look beautiful. I'll help you." The week before the party passed in a blur of preparations. Her mother took her shopping for a proper dress, a dark burgundy number with 3/4 sleeves and a modest V-neck. They found shoes to match, and her mother insisted on buying her a small clutch purse. Her hair had grown longer since the divorce, a small act of rebellion against his ex-wife's preference for military shortcuts. Now, just brushing her shoulders, it could be styled in a feminine way. Her mother spent hours practicing different looks on her, finally settling on soft waves that framed her face. On the night of the party, Audrey stood before the mirror, barely recognizing herself. The blonde waves softened her jawline. The dress hugged curves she didn't know she had. Her mother's pearl necklace gleamed against her skin. "Ready?" her mother asked, appearing behind her in the reflection. She wore a simple black dress with a single strand of silver at her neck. "What if someone realizes?" Audrey whispered. "Then we'll handle it. Together." Her mother squeezed her shoulder. "But trust me, all anyone will see is a beautiful woman." The drive to Rochester took 40 minutes. Audrey spent most of it adjusting and readjusting her necklace, second-guessing everything. "Stop fidgeting," her mother said gently. "You look perfect." The party was held in a small gallery downtown. Walking from the parking lot, Audrey felt every eye on her, certain that everyone could see through her carefully constructed facade. The burgundy heels clicked against the pavement, each step an effort not to wobble. At the door, her mother linked their arms. "Just breathe," she whispered. Inside, the gallery hummed with conversation and laughter. Abstract paintings adorned the walls, splashes of color against white. A small ensemble played classical music in one corner. Eleanor, a tall woman with silver hair swept into an elegant updo, greeted them with genuine warmth. "Margaret, so glad you could come." She embraced Audrey's mother before turning curious eyes to Audrey. "And this is my daughter, Audrey," her mother said smoothly. Eleanor's eyebrows rose slightly, surprise, but not suspicion. "I didn't know you had a daughter." "It's complicated," her mother replied with a smile. "But we've become quite close recently." "Well, it's lovely to meet you, Audrey. Please enjoy yourselves. There's champagne and hors d'oeuvres by the window." As they moved through the crowd, Audrey's tension began to ease. No one gave her strange looks. No one whispered behind their hands. She was just another guest at the party, unremarkable except perhaps for being somewhat younger than most attendees. "Margaret, who is this lovely young woman?" A gentleman with a neatly trimmed white beard approached them, champagne flute in hand. "Richard, this is my daughter, Audrey. Audrey. Richard was the department head when I first started teaching."
"Enchanted,"
Richard said, taking her hand.
"You have your mother's eyes."
The compliment, so casually given, sent a thrill through her. For the first time, she felt not just acceptance, but belonging. As the evening progressed, Audrey found herself separated from her mother, drawn into conversations with strangers who saw nothing amiss. She discussed art with a retired museum curator, debated politics with a former state legislator, and listened to stories about her mother's early teaching days from colleagues who had known her for decades. "Your mother never mentioned having a daughter," one woman commented, not suspiciously but curiously. "We were estranged for many years," Audrey replied, the half-truth coming easily. "But we've found our way back to each other." The woman nodded sympathetically. Family is complicated, but reconciliation is always worth celebrating. When they finally left, well past midnight, Audrey felt as if she were floating. The night air was crisp against her flushed cheeks. "You were right," she told her mother as they drove home. No one knew. "Of course they didn't," her mother said. "Because there was nothing to know. You weren't pretending, Audrey. You were just being yourself." The words echoed in her mind long after they'd returned home, after she'd carefully removed the makeup and hung up the burgundy dress. They followed her into sleep and greeted her in the morning light. In the weeks that followed, Audrey ventured out more often. Small excursions at first, a coffee shop 2 towns over, a bookstore in a city where no one knew Nikolai. Each successful outing built her confidence. Her mother supported her completely, but questions began to surface. What would happen when her mother's house sold? Where would Audrey go? How could she navigate a world that still had paperwork and records in the name Nikolai? "Have you considered making this permanent?" her mother asked one evening as they sat in the garden. The roses were past their prime, but a few stubborn blooms persisted. "What do you mean?" "I mean living as Audrey all the time, not just here with me, or on our little adventures." The thought both terrified and exhilarated her. "I wouldn't know where to begin." Her mother reached for her hand. "I've been doing some research. There are doctors and therapists who specialize in this. Support groups. Legal pathways. It wouldn't be easy, but if this is who you truly are." "What about your friends? The neighbors? Everyone who's known me my whole life?" "Those who truly care about you will adjust. The rest," her mother shrugged. "The rest don't matter." That night, Audrey lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The idea of living as her authentic self full-time was both tantalizing and terrifying. What about her job? She'd been on extended leave following the divorce, but eventually she'd need to return to the architectural firm where Nikolai had worked for the past 7 years. The next morning, she made a decision. "I want to try," she told her mother over coffee. "Living as Audrey. Completely." Her mother's face lit up. "I think that's wonderful. But I need to take it slowly."
"One step at a time."
The first step was finding a therapist who specialized in gender identity. Dr. Maxwell had an office an hour away, which felt like a safe distance from potential gossip. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a directness Audrey appreciated.
"It's never too late to live authentically,"
she told Audrey during their first session. "But it is a journey, not a destination."
"We'll take it at whatever pace feels right for you."
Under Dr. Maxwell's guidance, Audrey began hormone therapy. The changes were subtle at first. Softer skin, a slight redistribution of fat. Her blonde hair seemed to grow faster, falling past her shoulders in gentle waves that she no longer felt the need to hide or cut. 3 months into her transition, her mother's house sold. The timeline suddenly accelerated. She needed to decide where Audrey would live, work, exist in the world. "I can't go back to my old firm," she told Dr. Maxwell. "Everyone there knows me as Nikolai."
"Perhaps that's an opportunity rather than an obstacle," Dr. Maxwell suggested. "A chance to start fresh somewhere new."
The idea took root. Audrey began applying for positions at architectural firms in cities where no one knew her past. Her portfolio was strong. Nikolai had been good at his job, and those skills transferred seamlessly to Audrey. After several interviews conducted over video calls, she received an offer from a mid-sized firm in Portland, Oregon. The distance felt right, far enough from her small hometown to provide anonymity, but not so disconnected that she couldn't visit her mother regularly. "I'm scared," she admitted to her mother the night before her flight. Her burgundy suitcases stood packed by the door, containing a carefully curated wardrobe they'd assembled over the past months. The navy cocktail dress and pearl necklace were wrapped in tissue paper, too precious to trust to the baggage handlers. "Of course you are," her mother said. "But remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling afraid and doing it anyway." Portland welcomed Audrey with constant rain and unexpected kindness. Her new apartment was small but bright, with large windows overlooking a park where dog walkers congregated each morning. Her neighbors, a retired professor and his husband on one side, a nurse practitioner on the other, invited her for dinner within her first week. The architectural firm proved to be everything she'd hoped for. Her colleagues respected her work and welcomed her into their social circles without prying into her past. For the first time, Audrey existed without qualification or explanation. She was simply herself. 6 months into her new life, her mother came to visit. They spent a week exploring Portland together, browsing in Powell's books, sampling coffees at tiny cafes, walking through the Japanese garden in companionable silence. "Are you happy?" her mother asked as they sat on a bench overlooking the city. Audrey considered the question. "I think I'm learning what happiness actually feels like. For so long I was just existing. Now I'm living." Her mother squeezed her hand. "That's all I've ever wanted for you." The visit ended too soon, with promises of regular calls and another visit in the spring. Audrey returned to work with a renewed sense of purpose. Her first major project, designing a community library, was moving into the final stages. Her blonde hair, now long enough to pull back when she leaned over drafting tables, had become something of a signature amongst her colleagues. The blonde architect with the amazing eye for sustainable design, one client had described her. Life settled into pleasant routines. Weekdays at the firm, weekends exploring her new city, or volunteering at a local animal shelter. Video calls with her mother every Sunday evening. Sessions with a new therapist who helped her navigate the occasional rough patches. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of dysphoria, still legal hurdles to overcome. But for the first time, Audrey felt like the external world matched her internal reality. The anniversary of her move to Portland arrived with unexpected celebration. Her colleagues surprised her with a cake at lunch, congratulating her on a successful first year.
"To Audrey,"
her boss said, raising a paper cup of sparkling cider, "who's already made herself indispensable." That evening, alone in her apartment, she called her mother. "They celebrated my work anniversary today," she said, curled up on her window seat as rain tapped against the glass. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Did they make a fuss?" "A small one. It was nice." She paused. "Mom, do you ever miss him? Nikolai, I mean." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "I don't think of it that way. You're still you, all the parts I've always loved. You're just more yourself now." The words settled around her like a comfortable blanket. "Thank you for everything." "No need for thanks between us. Just be happy. That's enough." After they hung up, Audrey moved to her bedroom closet. From the back, she pulled out the garment bag that had made the journey from her mother's house to Portland. Inside, the navy cocktail dress remained as elegant as the day she'd first shown it to her mother. Beside it hung the strand of pearls, luminous in the soft bedroom light. She slipped the dress over her head. It fit differently now, softened curves filling it in ways they hadn't before. The pearls settled against her collarbone as if they'd been made for her. She stood before the mirror, studying her reflection, the blonde hair falling in waves around her shoulders, the dress embracing her figure, the pearls catching the light. This was never about becoming someone else, she realized. It was about becoming who she had always been. The next day at work, a new project landed on her desk, a renovation of a historic theater downtown. The client, a foundation dedicated to preserving architectural heritage while updating spaces for modern use, requested Audrey specifically. "Your portfolio shows a remarkable sensitivity to balancing tradition with innovation," the foundation's director told her during their initial meeting. "That's exactly what this theater needs." The project consumed her for the next several months. She spent weekends exploring the theater's every corner, running her hands over ornate plasterwork and sitting in different seats to understand how light and sound traveled through the space. Her apartment filled with sketches and models as she worked through various approaches. "You're obsessed," her colleague Michael teased one day, finding her at her desk long after everyone else had gone home. "It's not obsession, it's dedication," she corrected with a smile. "This building has stood for almost a century. It deserves thoughtful care." "Well, your dedication is making the rest of us look lazy. Some of us do occasionally leave the office before midnight." She laughed and promised to try for better work-life balance. But the truth was she loved being immersed in her work. The theater renovation wasn't just a project. It was a statement about her vision as an architect, about honoring the past while embracing the future, something that resonated deeply with her on a personal level. The foundation's board approved her preliminary designs with enthusiasm. "You've captured exactly what we hoped for," the director told her. "The essence remains, but with new life breathed into it." As construction began, Audrey found herself at the site daily, collaborating with contractors and artisans brought in to restore specific elements. Her burgundy hard hat became a familiar sight to the construction crew, who respected her attention to detail and clear communication. 6 months into the renovation, Architectural Digest expressed interest in profiling the project. The photographer arrived on a rare sunny day, capturing Audrey in her element, gesturing toward restored ceiling details, conferring with the master carpenter about original woodwork, studying blueprints spread across a makeshift table. "We'd like to include a personal profile as well," the journalist explained. "Your approach to this renovation is so distinctive. Readers will want to know the architect behind it." Audrey hesitated. Any deeper look into her background would inevitably reveal complexities she wasn't sure she wanted to navigate publicly. Yet the opportunity to discuss her architectural philosophy was tempting. "I'll focus on your professional journey and your vision for this project," the journalist assured her, sensing her reservation. "Nothing more personal than you're comfortable sharing," she agreed, and the interview proceeded smoothly. She spoke about her belief in buildings as living entities that evolved with the communities they served, about sustainability as a form of respect for both past and future, about the theater as a vessel for collective experience. The article appeared 3 months later, featuring Audrey standing in the theater's partially renovated lobby, sunlight streaming through restored stained glass above her. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple chignon, her burgundy blazer echoing architectural elements in the background. The pearls at her neck, her mother's pearls, added a touch of timeless elegance. The day the magazine hit newsstands, her phone buzzed constantly with congratulatory messages from colleagues and friends. Her mother called, voice thick with emotion. "You look so beautiful," she said. "So completely yourself." That evening, alone in her apartment, Audrey studied the magazine spread. The woman in those photographs exuded a confidence she was still learning to feel consistently, but it was there, in the set of her shoulders, the directness of her gaze, the ease with which she occupied her space in the world. The theater renovation continued, consuming most of her waking hours. Winter turned to spring, bringing cherry blossoms to the park outside her window and new challenges at the construction site. Water damage behind one wall required creative solutions that tested her problem-solving skills. The foundation's budget constraints meant prioritizing certain elements over others, decisions that sometimes kept her awake at night. Through it all, her connection with her mother remained her anchor. Weekly video calls became daily texts sharing small moments. A photograph of dawn breaking over Portland's skyline, a message about a new recipe attempted, updates on the theater's progress. "The grand reopening is scheduled for September," she told her mother during one Sunday call. "Would you want to come? They're flying in some Broadway performer for a special one-night show." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," her mother replied. "I'm so proud of you, Audrey. Not just for your work, though that's remarkable, but for your courage in becoming yourself." The months leading up to the reopening passed in a flurry of final details. Audrey worked closely with lighting designers to highlight architectural features, with acousticians to ensure perfect sound throughout the space, with the artistic director to create flexible staging options for different types of performances. A week before the reopening, her mother arrived in Portland. Seeing her at the airport, silver hair shorter than before, wearing a deep blue dress Audrey hadn't seen, brought an unexpected wave of emotion. "You cut your hair," Audrey said as they embraced. "And you grew yours," her mother replied, touching the blonde waves that now fell past Audrey's shoulders. "It suits you." They spent the evening catching up in Audrey's apartment, sharing a bottle of wine and the comfortable shorthand that existed between them. "I brought something for you," her mother said, reaching into her handbag. She withdrew a small velvet box. "For your big night." Inside lay a pair of pearl earrings, simple, elegant drops that matched the necklace Audrey had worn so often.
"These were my grandmother's,"
her mother explained.
"They belong with the necklace. And with you."
Audrey blinked back tears. "They're beautiful. Thank you." The night of the reopening arrived clear and mild. The theater's facade, now restored to its original glory with modern lighting enhancing its details, drew gasps from arriving guests. Inside, the lobby glowed with warm light that highlighted the restored plasterwork and fresh paint in historically accurate colors. Audrey wore a floor-length gown in deep forest green, a departure from her usual burgundy, but perfect for the occasion. Her blonde hair was swept up, showcasing the pearl earrings that matched her necklace. Her mother, elegant in silver gray, stayed close by her side as Audrey greeted Foundation board members, city officials, and arts patrons.
"Ms. Crawford, the transformation is nothing short of miraculous,"
the Foundation director told her, gesturing around the lobby.
"You've preserved the soul of this place while giving it new life."
As guests moved into the auditorium for the performance, a small commotion near the entrance caught Audrey's attention. A familiar figure stood scanning the crowd, tall, with sharp features and a perpetual furrow between his brows. Her ex-husband. Audrey froze, one hand instinctively rising to touch the pearls at her neck. Her mother followed her gaze. "Is that Daniel?" she asked softly. "Yes." Audrey's mouth had gone dry. "I don't understand what he's doing here."
"Do you want to avoid him?
We can slip into the auditorium now." Before Audrey could decide, Daniel spotted her. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by confusion, then something unreadable. He made his way through the crowd toward them.
"I saw the article in Architectural Digest,"
he said, without preamble when he reached them. His eyes traveled over her, taking in the changes.
"I almost didn't believe it was you."
"Daniel," she acknowledged, finding her voice. "I'm surprised to see you here. I'm in Portland for a conference. When I saw the theater reopening was tonight." He trailed off, then nodded to her mother.
"Mrs. Crawford, you look well."
"As do you, Daniel," her mother replied coolly. An awkward silence fell between them. Around them, the last of the guests were filing into the auditorium. The orchestra had begun tuning up, notes drifting through the open doors. "We should find our seats," Audrey said finally.
"May I speak with you privately first?"
Daniel asked.
"Just for a moment."
Audrey glanced at her mother, who squeezed her arm. "I'll save your seat," she said, before moving toward the auditorium. Alone with Daniel, Audrey felt an old anxiety rising. She smoothed her hands down her forest green gown, a gesture he would have recognized from their marriage. Nikolai's nervous habit.
"You look..."
he began, then stopped.
"You seem well."
"I am," she said simply.
"The theater is incredible. Your work always was exceptional."
"Thank you." Another silence stretched between them, filled with unasked questions.
"Were you unhappy when we were married?"
he finally asked. The question caught her off guard with its directness. "Not because of you," she answered honestly. "But yes, I was unhappy with myself, with living inauthentically." He nodded slowly.
"I keep thinking I should have known, should have seen something."
"I didn't want anyone to see, not even myself, for a long time." The 5-minute warning chime sounded. Around them, ushers were gently directing the last stragglers toward the auditorium. "I should go," Audrey said. "My mother's waiting, and I need to say a few words before the performance." Daniel reached out as if to touch her arm, then thought better of it.
"You've built a good life here. It shows."
"I have," she agreed. "It took time to find the right blueprint, but the structure is sound now." A smile ghosted across his face at the architectural metaphor.
"Always the architect."
They parted without further conversation, Audrey slipping into the auditorium as the lights began to dim. Her mother sat in the front row, an empty seat beside her. "Everything all right?" she whispered, as Audrey settled beside her. "Yes," Audrey replied, surprised to find it was true. Moments later, she was called to the stage to say a few words before the performance. Standing in the spotlight, looking out at the packed auditorium, at her mother in the front row, at Daniel somewhere in the middle section, at the foundation board members and city officials and arts patrons who had supported this renovation, Audrey felt a profound sense of alignment. "Architecture is about creating spaces where life can unfold authentically," she began. "This theater has stood for nearly a century, witnessing countless stories play out on its stage. Tonight, it begins a new chapter of its own story, renewed and ready for the next 100 years of human experience." The audience applauded as she returned to her seat. As the curtain rose on the performance, her mother reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. The Broadway star's voice filled the perfectly tuned acoustic space, resonating through the theater exactly as Audrey had envisioned during those long months of renovation. Every note seemed to affirm the rightness of the choices she'd made, not just for this building, but for her life. After the performance, at the reception in the lobby, Audrey circulated among guests, accepting congratulations. Daniel had disappeared, but she found she didn't mind. That chapter had closed long ago, and their brief encounter felt like an appropriate epilogue. Acknowledgement without regret. "Here's to new beginnings," her mother said later that night, raising a glass in Audrey's apartment as they kicked off their shoes and relaxed. "And to the blueprints that guide us there," Audrey added, touching her glass to her mother's. Outside her window, Portland's lights glimmered against the night sky. Inside, surrounded by the life she had built, Audrey Crawford was finally, completely at home in herself.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!